Welcome back to another episode of Search It Up with Sienna, the web series where I use IMDb to discover and talk about all different types of movies and TV shows, and how the people in front of and behind the camera not only make it all possible, but are somehow all interconnected. I talk directly with the talent about their backstories and experiences on and off set, and what they're up to today. On my last episode, I talked about Descendants with costume designer Kara Son. Dove Cameron played Mal in Descendants, and she plays Betsy in Schmigadoon. So today, I'm going to be talking about Schmigadoon, and joining me today is a very special guest, writer and creator of Schmigadoon, Cinco Paul. Schmigadoon stars Cecily Strong and Keegan-Michael Key, and is about a couple, who they play, that go on a retreat and find themselves in a world where everyone thinks it's a Broadway musical, and everyone sings and dances at just random moments. It's just really funny to see, especially Keegan-Michael Key's reaction as his character to them, because he always gets so annoyed in the first season with them just breaking into song in the middle of a scene. In addition to Schmigadoon, Cinco Paul also wrote the Despicable Me movies, 1, 2, and 3, The Secret Life of Pets, The Lorax, and more. Cinco Paul talks all about his path as a writer, his recent projects, and what's ahead. And now, without further ado, here's my interview with Cinco Paul. So when did you know you wanted to be a writer?
Wow. I mean, from a very early age, I wanted to either make music or movies, really young. I think when I was 8, 9, or 10, I was like, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to make movies, or I'm going to be a famous pop musician, or, that was very early on. I don't think I'd exactly envisioned the path I ended up on, but that was always the plan, from a very early age. And credit to my parents, who were not in the entertainment industry or arts or anything. They were in the insurance biz. They didn't always completely understand, but they always encouraged me.
Mm-hmm. And did you write script, screenplays and or music when you were interested in that?
Yeah, I think I wrote my first song when I was 6 or 7 or something, this really simple song. And then my family got a Super 8 camera. I don't know if you knew what that is, the old fashioned type sort of film camera that you do home movies on back when I was a kid. Got one of those when I was about 10 or 11. And then I got the idea, I can use it to make my own movies. And so I started making movies when I was pretty young, when I was 11 or 12. And I also made animated movies with little clay monsters and stuff through stop motion animation. So I was doing it at a very early age because I was just convinced this was my thing.
And do you remember the very first script you wrote and what it was about?
Well, yeah, it was probably, I guess it was for one of these monster movie things that I made. It was there were the good monsters that were blue and orange, made of blue and orange clay, and they were called the Blunges. And then there were the green and red bad guys, who were called the Greds or something. And so it was kind of a fight between the two of them. There probably wasn't much of a script, but I certainly had fashioned a story. And then I also started doing some live action things that were very sketch-like Monty Python, very silly. It was a lot of me stealing from things that I liked. And so there was something called, what was it called? I forget. Oh, Time for Terror was the name of the first movie, but it wasn't a scary movie. It was a comedy. I was being funny by calling it that, I guess. I don't know. But these are, I'm 11 or 12.
And I understand that you came up with the concept for Schmigadoon years before it actually had the idea, it came into production and everything. But what made you decide to bring it back to the studios now?
Yeah, it was, I'd been working on all those animated movies for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ready to get out of animation and do live action. And then TV looked really interesting to me because all the different streamers and TV was becoming really cool. And so I started to think like, what would be a good TV show? And then we met with this company called Broadway Video, which is Lorne Michaels, the guy who runs Saturday Night Live, his company. And they said, if you have anything that's musical, let us know. And then it was then that I thought, oh, this old idea that I've had forever, like maybe its time has come.
Was there any like TV shows or movies or musicals that inspired the idea of Schmigadoon?
Well, I'd say that, I mean, all these old musicals for sure, Music Man and Singing in the Rain and Sound of Music in Oklahoma, those are definitely an inspiration. The initial inspiration came from, I was watching this movie called An American Werewolf in London, and which is not a musical, but it starts with two guys sort of hiking through the forest. And I thought, oh, that's the same as the opening to this musical called Brigadoon. What if those two guys stumbled on a musical? And that's where that came about. But
Really?
then also when I was like finding writers to join me, for the writers room, I looked at a lot of writers who'd worked on The Good Place and
Oh,
Jane the Virgin. I looked like those were shows that I really loved, and I wanted Schmigadoon to have kind of the spirit or the tone of those shows.
mhm. And I heard that you sing your pitches for studios for like your projects. Do you sing the pit? Did you sing the pitch for Schmigadoon? And what was the initial reaction when you started pitching it, or did you go right to Apple TV?
No, Apple wasn't the first one. Yeah, we had to sing. This is, my writing partner Ken and I. You can't pitch this, I think, without singing it, And so I know in the first meeting, definitely sang Corn Puddin'. That song was written, and so yeah, I'd sing that, and then just a little bit of like the Mayor's song, "Somewhere Love Is Waiting." They were just like little tidbits of the opening song, "Welcome to Our Little Town." There was that, but I will say that the first places we pitched it, it did not sell to them. I think Apple was maybe the third or the fourth. It was just too weird, I think, we went to Amazon, we went to HBO. It just didn't really fit
Yeah.
with like what they're trying to do. It wasn't edgy enough, but Apple was fortunately looking, they hadn't really released any comedies yet. Ted Lasso hadn't come out, but they were looking for like uplifting, happy comedies. And fortunately, you only need one person to like it, right? And so then Apple fortunately decided to make it.
And what was the most challenging part about writing Schmigadoon?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, part of it was, I was new to TV. I'd,
Oh,
I'd spent so much time in movies, so I had to really learn. And it was a different experience being the showrunner of a TV show. Like you're in charge of everything,
yeah.
which was not the experience I'd had making movies, making Despicable Me and all those movies. I was sort of a smaller part of a team there, but this was like totally in charge. So I had a lot to learn. Fortunately, I had a lot of great people to help me. But I think the hardest part was just realizing, oh, I'm in charge now. I have to make all these decisions.
And did you like did you have to do like some research, like watch some old musicals when writing Schmigadoon?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I watched them all. I mean, I love musicals, so I was pretty familiar with them, but I rewatched all of them and I got the music out and played it on the piano, so I could get really familiar with it. And I listened to everything because you really have to just immerse yourself completely in it in
Yeah.
order to write the show, but also to write the songs.
Mhm.
That I wanted them to feel authentic.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of research.
Yeah, I could definitely see that there probably was because it just takes like I know even for when I do my interviews, like I do research on the person, even if I've watched like their movies before, I like rewatch them to like think of more questions and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's smart because the you can never be too prepared,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And I know a lot of the songs are based on classical musicals, and the show's concept holds up really well to audiences today. But what is it that makes it current, you think?
Well, I think I think it's probably a couple things. First of all, like life is hard, and
Yeah.
sometimes when we turn on our TVs, we just want to see something fun. And I think that is in a way why there was such a positive response to it. But also because, we have Cecily Strong and Keegan Michael Key, are two modern characters from the real world.
Yeah.
They offer the modern perspective and say, like, they can comment on things that are problematic, like the way that women were represented, or and different things in the past. They can comment on it with a modern sensibility. So it's probably those two things.
And one thing I love is that about Schmigadoon is that every episode starts with like present day before actually coming to the Schmigadoon town. And I feel like it reminds us that the characters are real. So like do you like to do that with a lot of your projects? Do you like to start it with like a flashback almost?
Well, that's really a smart observation. These are great questions, by the way.
Thank
You
you.
did do your a good work. Yeah, we did those flashbacks because we realized that we start the show with them broken up, kind of. They're fighting and they're unhappy in the relationship. So we had to show, well, it wasn't always this way, right? It was important to show them falling in love and good times too. And because we start with them in a bad place, the only way to do that was through flashbacks. And so I had the idea, well, let's start every episode, with a little snippet of something in the relationship. And not all of them are positive, but most of them are positive. Just a way to get a clearer idea of what the relationship is, because they are the reality that grounds the show. And so it was really important. I wanted people to root for them to get back together, right?
It's almost like a foreshadowing too, because it's like saying like there's still hope for them to get back together. Like they were in love at some point.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Huh.
Yeah. And what does the town of Schmigadoon represent to you?
Wow. I mean, it's a simpler time. I think a lot of it is sort of joy and kindness and the love of community and all those things, but everything's not great there, right? Because you have Mildred Layton and she's narrow-minded, and everything's not perfect, but it is sort of the hope and joy of a simpler time.
And do you have like a favorite one of your favorite song in the Schmigadoon?
Um, I mean, I love them all, I have to say, but I mean, one that I really am so happy with how it turned out is the song that Ariana DeBose sings as
Oh,
Emma Tate, the school teacher, "With All of Your Heart," with all the kids. I love tap dancing kids, and
yeah.
kids singing, and that was number I was really looking forward to, and it just turned out so great. I was so happy with how that song turned out.
I do tap dancing too, and it makes me very happy.
Oh,
So
you do? Nice.
yeah, I do like competitive dancing on the side. So
Wow. How long have you been dancing?
well, I've been dancing since I was like 3, but I started competitive dancing when I was maybe like 8 or 9. I
Wow.
mostly do like hip hop because hip hop was my favorite style, but I tap is like my second favorite style, so I do that. But yeah, it's really fun. I love to dance, so
Wow, that's great. Yeah. Keep it up.
thank you. And in addition to Schmigadoon, you have written some of my favorite animation movies, including Despicable Me and Secret Life of Pets. But what made you decide to write Despicable Me? And is the process of writing an animation different from a TV show?
Yeah, I mean, the sort of, as I said, I'd started off when I was a kid making animation, but then I sort of moved away from it in my career and was pulled into it to work on Horton Hears a Who.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the first animated movie Ken and I worked on. And so that was a really good experience. And the man who ran Fox at the time, which is the studio that released Horton,
Mhm.
was starting his own new studio called Illumination,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he'd really liked working with us on Horton, so he invited us, he said, I want you to come and write all of our movies at Illumination. And he said, like, here's the idea for the first one. What do you think? And he showed us some pictures of a villain, adopting 3 little girls. And we fell in love with that idea right away and said, like, oh my gosh, this has to be the next thing we do. And so that's what started that. I mean, a lot of the rules of writing apply to everything, right? You want to tell a compelling story with interesting characters
Mhm.
and all those sort of things. But the process of doing an animated movie is different because it takes about 3 years to make the movie. So you're writing it and rewriting it that whole time, and so it can wear you out, actually, after a certain amount of time. And I think that's why after like 10 or 12 years of it, I was worn out. But the real difference is just, the process takes longer.
So the Minions are just so iconic. Everyone loves the Minions. So what like made you come up with that idea for these like lovable little like creatures almost?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really take the credit or the blame for the for the Minions. I mean, we wrote in the script that Gru had minions, but
Okay.
in our heads, they were sort of these big, hulking, dumb monsters, that did all his dirty work for him. And it was really the directors, Pierre Coffin and Chris Renaud, who came up with the yellow goggly design of the minions and the real concept. So they're the ones who came up with the minions. And then obviously once we knew they existed, we would write jokes for them and
Yeah.
things like that.
And they almost speak like a different language. So how was it like coming up with their own language almost?
Yeah, Pierre, the director, does almost all the voices for the minions, and
Oh wow.
he came up with his own language. And like, so we would sometimes in the scripts we would make attempts at the language, but then also sometimes we would just write it in English and say, Pierre, translate it to the Minionese for us. Yeah.
What is next for you? Like what is like next for you to do?
Yeah, I have a stage musical that I've written with this woman named Becca Brunstetter, and we're just trying to get that to Broadway. It's very exciting. It's called AD-16. It's about teenage Mary Magdalene having a crush on teenage Jesus, set in the New Testament times. And so I'm really excited about that. And then I'm also, we have season 2 of Schmigadoon coming out
I
next
was actually just
month.
asked too, like how far ahead did you think or plan with that show? Like did you know there was going to be a season 2 before actually season 1 coming out?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always planned in my head, like from the very beginning, that we would go through different eras of musicals. And so while we were shooting season 1, towards the end of it, I would pull people aside like Dove and say, here's who I think you're going to be in season 2, and so I had ideas, but we didn't know for sure if we'd get the chance to do it. But thankfully, Apple gave us the chance. So I would love to, keep doing Schmigadoon and keep making musicals as long as people will let me.
And I know that too, that doing some more research that Schmigadoon took place in like the older musicals, and now I saw some pictures of like Chicago is going to be the like sort of like the new Schmigadoon. It's almost transitioning into later musicals. Do you think if there were to be a season like 3, that's what you would keep transitioning into like more recent musicals?
Yeah, I think if we did a season 3, it would kind of follow the same pattern, right? That
Yeah.
from one to 2. So I mean, it's fun. There's so many musicals and so many great ones and different styles. It's
Yeah.
really fun for me. In season 2, it was really fun for me to explore a whole new era of musicals, the 60s and 70s.
Yeah,
So
I know.
as long as it keeps being fun, I want to do it.
Yeah, because I've seen like from like School of Rock on Broadway. I've seen like Lion King to like Hamilton. They're all 3 of those are just such like kind of different shows from like
Yeah, yeah.
being one with like just more like Disney songs. But yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite musical?
I've seen about a few. I think my favorite one I've seen, maybe Dear Evan Hansen. It was a
Oh,
very good musical. It was like very moving. Right now I do a lot of things. I do tennis, I do dance, I do my web series, but I right recently I've discovered that I really love like writing too, like especially writing screenplays for like TV shows and movies like especially. And what is like some advice you would give to me or anyone out there who is like in their teens or younger just wanting to write?
yeah, I'd say, I mean, the best thing you can do is just keep writing.
Mhm.
Sienna, write something and finish it, and then, you love it, and then move on and then write something again, because every time you write something new, you're going to get better and you're going to learn more. So the more you write, the better. I mean, I went to film school. I think film school is valuable, like later, that's a little ways away for you.
I'm
You're
going
still,
Yeah, I'm going into high school next year actually, and there's this class that like I get to choose electives, and one of the like my top class, like it's just the one I want to get into, is digital film production. So like you almost do a little bit directing, you do a little bit of writing, you do a little bit of like cinematography. So I'm excited. Hopefully, I get into that class.
yeah, I hope you do too. That sounds great. Yeah, just the more you can do, you get to be a better writer by writing
Hmm.
and rewriting and making things better. So I just encourage you or anyone else who wants to be a writer to keep doing that. Sometimes you can get stuck on one script, but it's
Yeah.
like finish it,
Yeah.
and learn how to finish things and then move on to the next.
Before we end, you're my second guest to do this with. And basically I'm going to be telling a story with like every guest I do. So my first guest, this is what they've done so far, and then you could add like one or two sentences to the story.
Oh no, okay, here
So
we go.
once upon a time, there was a young girl who was very quiet in her own way. She was quiet and popular at the same time, and she had dreams of being a creative and a creator and a talent. And that little girl had a mother who poured everything into her and who was her biggest support and biggest cheerleader. And she encouraged her to do and go into the world and do amazing things.
Wow. And so I continue that.
Mhm.
um Well, I mean, we need some conflict in there. So I think what I'm going to say is that, like, but then one day the girl returned home to find that her mother, oh, I'd say her mother disappears.
Oh, okay.
Her mother disappears and she's like, "Oh no, what happened to my mom?" And then she finds a clue about where her mother might be.
Oh,
And
that's
and then
cool.
she goes on a journey to see if she can find her mother.
I like that. I'm excited to see where that will go after that. Well,
There
thank
you go.
you so much for doing this. I had so much fun talking to you, and I learned so much about your work, and it truly inspired me.
Oh, well, thank you. This was an amazing interview. You are an amazing person. Keep it up. I look forward to seeing more things that you create in the future. Have a good graduation and then have fun in high school.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye,
Bye.
Sienna.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. As someone who loves to write, it was really interesting to hear about how you got started and the process you take in writing. And now, before we search it up, here's a quick fun fact. Did you know that Schmigadoon is the third project that Kristen Chenoweth and Dove Cameron have starred in together? Previously, they played mother-daughter in both Descendants and Hairspray Live. And now it's time to search it up. Let's see. Oh, Martin Short plays Leprechaun in Schmigadoon. And he plays Franck, who is very funny, in Father the Bride. So, next time we're going to be talking about Father the Bride. See you then!